We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we are looking at Dawn of DC Night Terrors Free Comic Book Day Special Edition 2023. There's only one story in here, and it is a preview for Night Terrors. That cover's really cool, but this story has nothing to do with that. So this is a nightmare Robin is having, and he is running around looking at these creepy, monstrous versions of his friends and family. And there's some eyeballs and other things, and then Batman wakes him up and gives him like a little metaphorical hug. It was just kind of not real interesting. It didn't really sell me on the Night Terrors stuff. This is some dog crap art. There's a couple panels that work, but most of it was really weird quasi-manga art. I don't know what I'm looking at half the time. This was just a mess. This doesn't seem to be in any way critical to the storyline. It's just a free thing. So it's not necessary to read this before you get into the Night Terrors stuff. I won't bother tracking it down. Please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe. Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Night Terrors First Blood, Issue 1 from DC Comics in 2023. Now this issue really kicks the whole thing off, which is largely a series of one-shots, loosely connected because of the general premise, but also through Night Terrors, which is going to be, I think, a 4-issue miniseries throughout July and August of 2023. So this issue is written by Joshua Williamson, art by Howard Porter, colors by Brad Anderson, letters by Troy Pateri, cover by Howard Porter and Hi-Fi. Now, I really like the cover because it does relate to what's going on in the book, but everybody's just kind of posing. I noticed Sandman in the background, but he's not in this issue. And Deadman plays a huge part in this, which I'm really intrigued by because this premise is pretty interesting. So we start off with John D, better known as Dr. Destiny, figuring out that he's in some sort of nightmare, and somebody is hunting him and causing him all kinds of problems. It turns out they might be after something called the Nightmare Stone, which is apparently related to his Dream Stone, and he may have hid it within the nightmares of his enemies. Now, Deadman kind of gets involved because he notices there's something weird going on around Superman and Wonder Woman when they go by, and somebody broke into the Hall of Justice and left a dream construct of Dr. Destiny in there, which leads Batman to Arkham, where something is going on with Dr. Destiny. Now, Deadman tries to warn them, but it doesn't really work out, and Batman really hates what happened. Now, of course, Waller's involved peripherally, so there's probably going to be a Suicide Squad one-shot as well, which I don't care about. She's an annoying character that probably should have been dealt with a long time ago. Seems kind of silly they keep making her out to be female Nick Fury when she's not. But there's some really interesting ideas here and pretty horrific looking bad guys. There is a good cliffhanger ending where we find out what the bad guy's name is. I don't want to give too much away because there are some really interesting plot elements in here. I thought it was really well written, and it's got a lot of really cool ideas that hopefully will have a good payoff. Unfortunately, I really do not trust these things where they have a lot of peripheral one-shots because they tend to be garbage. But I have to say I did enjoy this. This really is more issue 1 than anything else, but they're selling it as a separate book because it's really setting everything up. But if you're going to read Night Terrors, you really do need to read this issue. There's a lot going on in here that is setting up the Night Terrors storyline, and Deadman plays a really big part in this issue, and I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes. But I enjoyed it quite a bit. Is it worth $6? Not really. But it was a fun read. The art is a slightly sketchier version of Porter's normal art, and I have to admit that it's really hit and miss for me. At times it was really sketchy, especially with smaller characters, and it looked kind of rushed, but I got kind of used to it as the storyline went on. I'm just not in love with it. It's not his best work. There are panels that are fantastic and some that are really bad. So I was a little concerned about that if this is going to be the art, it looks like it was very hurried. So I would say try and get it for like $3 or wait for the trade, but it's not worth $6. That's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you'd like to help the channel out in other ways, links are in the description to various support methods. And as always, we hope to see you on the next one. Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Night Terrors, Issue 1. This is a 4-part miniseries from DC Comics, part of their 2023 summer event. Written by Joshua Williamson, art by Giuseppe Camuncoli, Stefano Nisi, and Casper Wingard. Colors by Frank Martin and Casper Wingard. Letters by Troy Pateri. I have the cover by Ivan Reyes, Danny Miki, and Brad Anderson. Edited by Ben Abernathy. Cover's pretty cool, and it does relate to what's going on in the book. We start off with an introduction to Boston Brand, better known as Deadman, and a little bit about his origin, which really could have been squeezed into one page instead of 2 pages with really big panels. And then we jump over to what's going on right now, where Insomnia is fighting with Batman, who is currently possessed by Deadman. And Deadman's had about enough of this nonsense, so he tries to get into Insomnia. And we learn a little bit more about what's going on. He is after the Nightmare Stone, as we learned in Night Terror's First Blood. And it has some kind of connection to the original Sandman and an unsolved case. So Boston also sees the origin of Insomnia, that he was a patient at Arkham Asylum, possibly in some kind of coma. We don't get much more beyond that, but Insomnia apparently thrives on nightmares as opposed to good memories or any other motivation like that. So he's hiding something in his past. Now Deadman has to use the Batmobile to get out of there and do something kind of desperate, which Batman absolutely would not have approved of. And we get an interesting hero return. Overall, the story is pretty solid. Some of the art is really good, some of it is a little too manga for my taste. And it's a little jarring when you see the art styles clash. So the scenes near the end at the graveyard were really cool, and the scenes that open the story up where Deadman is at the circus, those are pretty well done. The stuff in the middle is, it's a little hit and miss for me. It is a $4 book. I thought it would be a $5 or $6 book, so I didn't feel too cheated for my money. I thought the story is pretty solid, even though I have some quibbles about some of the art. It is a decent story so far, and I like that they are dusting off some more obscure heroes and letting them be the stars of the storyline, like Deadman. So that's kind of nice. There are a lot of peripheral one-shots that seem to be kind of related, but so far the only one you have to actually read is First Blood. If you haven't read Night Terror's First Blood, this story is going to make almost no sense. They just drop you in the middle of a situation with Batman and Insomnia and give you no context to work with. So there's very little to get you into the story if you didn't read the other ones. It isn't too bad. You could probably get away with it and get a general idea what's going on, but I think for the sake of really enjoying the story, you'll want to pick up First Blood. But that aside, it was a pretty good installment in the storyline. So if you get a chance to check it out, I'd recommend it. That's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you'd like to help the channel out in other ways, links are in the description to various support methods. And as always, we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Night Terrors, Issue 2. This is a 4-part miniseries from DC Comics in 2023, but you'll also need to read First Blood and Night's End because you can't just have a miniseries that's actually numbered anymore. You have to have some other number one-shots there to pad the sales numbers. So this issue was written by Joshua Williamson, art by Giuseppe Camuncoli, Stefano Nisi, and Casper Wingard. Colors by Frank Martin and Casper Wingard. Letters by Troy Pateri. Covers by Ivan Reyes, Danny Miki, and Brad Anderson, and it was edited by Ben Abernathy. I really like the cover. It's really well done. It does kind of relate to what's going on, but it doesn't really have any bad guys or fighting or anything in it, just sort of implied action. So Deadman is talking to a newly resurrected Golden Age character who is sort of a zombie, and he finds out there was an unsolved case that really haunted him, and he wants to hang around and help out. Meanwhile, there's some unnamed character that nobody knows about that is dreaming, and then he's just gonna get killed, so don't get attached. Meanwhile, things aren't looking good for the waking world. Deadman tries to infiltrate Insomnia's mind, and we get to see part of his origin, which was pretty nice, and then things go horribly wrong, and we're left with a cliffhanger ending. Overall, it's not a bad story. The art is a little bit rushed looking in this. It's very sketchy at times, and the body proportions don't always line up. It's strange strange because some panels look really good, others look really rushed. I don't know if that's because there were 3 artists involved in this, or if it's just that somebody got super lazy, or somebody's just a bad artist, but it's a real mixed bag as far as the art goes. And somebody is trying to be very anime with their drawings, but I guess that's the trend these days. I don't particularly care for it, but there is enough decent art in here that I didn't absolutely hate everything. And the story is pretty interesting. I would say wait and get this out of a bargain bin. It's a pretty decent story, but the art is kind of a mixed bag, and there's so many ancillary books that kind of makes it difficult to justify paying full price for. I do like the Dead Man as a prominent character in the miniseries, so that's a nice touch, but I'm not convinced that it's worth hunting down every single part of this, especially when they pull the same thing that they've been doing where they have these bookend pieces that aren't part of the main miniseries, but you have to read if you want to know the opening of the story and the closing of the story. It's very deceptive and a very lazy trick, so I'm very put off by that. But like I said, the story's not bad, and the art is kind of hit and miss, but it's not the worst I've seen out of DC. So I'll recommend it, but only if you can pick it up cheap. That's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you'd like to help the channel out in other ways, links are in the description to various support methods. And as always, we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we are looking at Night Terrors issue 3. This is allegedly a 4-part miniseries, but there is a bookend on each side, so it's actually a 6-part miniseries with a whole bunch of ancillary books that, as a general rule, have nothing to do with the main story and no impact on it at all. This issue was written by Joshua Williamson, art by Giuseppe Camuncoli, Stefano Nisi, and Casper Weingard. Colors by Frank Martin and Casper Weingard, letters by Troy Pateri. I have the main cover, which is by Ivan Reyes, Danny Miki, and Brad Anderson, and the book was edited by Ben Abernathy. The cover's a little busy. It's a little too convoluted. Batman should probably be a little bit more prominent or centered because there's really no focus for your eye except that sword, and that just leads you to this red blurry mess thing, which leads down to another bad guy and right past Batman. So I don't like the cover. It really wouldn't have sold me on the book, which I already was buying it, but as an independent issue, it makes no sense on its own. So Sandman and Batman are facing off with these monsters, and Damian shows up to save them because he's turning into a Gary Sue pretty quickly, more than usual, and they manage to escape. Robin, of course, figures out immediately that Batman is possessed by Deadman, which he thinks is a demon, and he can see Deadman for some reason because he's seen a lot of death. So a little bit more Gary Sue action going on there. And while they're on the Batplane, Deadman decides to take a little walk through Insomnia's mind, and we get to see a therapy meeting where Insomnia drinks some coffee before stabbing somebody to death, cutting his eyelids off. It was very exciting. Then they figure out a way to enter this halfway space called the Hollow, which is between waking and dreaming and death, and Sandman has to defend the two of them while they're in this zone. They call it the reality stream, is an alternate name for it, and that looks pretty interesting. And we end up with Boston having to face his nightmares, and we get a twist ending. Overall, the art is a bit of a mixed bag. The scenes where Boston is in Insomnia's mind, I think, is far inferior art. The perspective of the body proportions don't really line up sometimes, and it's a much sketchier style that I don't think really works with the rest of the art. Once again, the artist doesn't know how to do mouths, so people appear not to have any lips at all. It's really weird. But some of the art is pretty good. It's just a bit of a mixed bag. The story's fine. I think there's a little bit they could have cut out, like the first page intros they do in each issue, where you just have Deadman breaking the fourth wall and talking to the audience, are really obnoxious and unnecessary. They don't add anything to it. It's just space filler. It could easily have been cut out. But overall, I did enjoy the story. I think there were just a few things the editor probably should have said, no, we don't need that, and tighten the story up a little bit to make it a bit more concise and focus more on the action. And I think that would have moved the plot a little faster. But a pretty decent issue. So far, I don't hate this miniseries. It's not the greatest thing I've ever read. I am glad to see Deadman is a big part of it, and they have the Sandman in there, so that was kind of neat. And there were some good story elements. I'm a little annoyed that Damian Wayne is such an important part of this, because he just seems to be a little bit of an overpowered mess. But I will recommend it. Maybe not for full price, but if you can find it at a reasonable price, I would say $2-3, probably a good price for it. I don't think this is going to become very sought after in the future unless there's some big event in the final issue. So I don't think it's going to get to be something that's a very expensive issue. So worth a read, but not going to blow you away, and definitely not worth tracking down. If you come across it in a bargain bin, then snatch it up. That'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you'd like to help the channel out in other ways, links are in the description to various support methods. And as always, we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Night Terrors issue 4. This is the final part of the mini-series. Just kidding, there's an end cap book that has nothing to do with the numbering sequence. They just wanted to make another number 1 so they could trick people into buying it. This is written by Joshua Williamson, art by Giuseppe Camuncoli, Stefano Nisi, and Casper Weingard. Colors by Frank Martin and Casper Weingard. Lettered by Troy Pateri. Edited by Ben Abernathy. Covers by Ivan Reyes, Danny Miki, and Brad Anderson. I like the cover, it's pretty good. It does kind of relate to what's going on because Deadman does play a central part in this, as do Wesley Dodds and Batman. So Deadman is still inside of Batman, and Robin, of course, is little Gary Sue, so he's tagging along, and Wesley Dodds is there in his gross undead form trying to help out. Now Robin has a little bit of a scare, and Deadman has to see some of his own nightmares as he makes his way to where Insomnia is sleeping. Now we do find out why Insomnia is the way he is and why he blames the Justice League, and it's a really selfish reason. And the art style is significantly different for that sequence because it takes place in Insomnia's head, and the art is incredibly jarringly different, and not in a good way. I think it's a vastly inferior art style that is really more like an image book with some over-the-top facial features that don't really match up. Also, the positioning of the bodies looks a little weird too, but it looks like Deadman may have made an error in judgment when he went to Arkham, and now it is set up for the conclusion, which is in Night's Terror, Night's End. Even though this is the miniseries, they again have to trick you into buying these Alpha and Omega books instead of just making it a 6-issue miniseries. There's some fairly mature stuff in this book that's probably going to be a little bit too much for younger readers, but I would say it's okay for teens and up. The story was okay, I didn't have a problem with that, but like I said, some of the art is a bit weak, and the little end cap things where Deadman is sitting around talking to the audience are really annoying. I don't know why they started doing this in comics. It's become a big trend to break the fourth wall, and we've seen it done for several years now. It used to be restricted to the goofy characters or characters like Deadpool that were kind of silly, and now they do it all the time with these little introductory things, and it's really annoying. It breaks the sense of the story, and I get what they're going for, it just doesn't really work for the story that they're doing, and it rarely ever is done well. So overall, I thought the issue was pretty good. It's just some of the art is pretty weak. About halfway through the book, it really kind of turns into this slightly inferior art style that is really badly done. So it's a bit of a mixed bag, but I will recommend it because I thought the core story was pretty good, but it's really not worth the cover price. This is going to be one of those miniseries like Days of Vengeance or Millennium that you can pull out of a discount bin and read it for significantly cheaper in like a year or two. It's still a pretty fun miniseries. It's just not going to be a sought after collector's item. You should be able to find it relatively cheap, but I thought it was worth a read. That's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you'd like to help the channel out in other ways, links are in the description to various support methods. And as always, we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we are looking at Night Terrors, Night's End, Issue 1. This is a one-shot tie-in to the Night Terrors miniseries from DC Comics in 2023. This was written by Joshua Williamson, art by Howard Porter, Giuseppe Camuncoli, Stefano Nisi, and Trevor Hairsine. Colors by Rain Burrito, letters by Troy Pateri, edited by Ben Abernathy. Covers by Howard Porter and Romulo Fajardo Jr., and the cover's okay. The heroes are real tiny for some reason, but it really didn't do anything for me. Deadman and Insomnia probably should have been a little smaller and the center of their heads further up in the image, and you could have made Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman bigger and had the bad guys a little bigger. Otherwise, it just looks like they're in some sort of mess. You can't really tell the bad guys at first glance. So the first couple of pages are giant waste of time. It's some kid having a nightmare, and they use this as an end cap for the stories. The first part is about 5 pages of this kid having a nightmare and, oh, superheroes are scary. It's just a giant waste of space. And then there's this big 2-page splash recapping the entire miniseries for you. And it looks like Insomnia is winning, and he gives Deadman a family to kind of get Deadman out of the way. So with Deadman distracted by dreams, he goes after the superheroes using the Nightmare Stone. Well, Deadman has to break out of the nightmare and help his friends and stop Insomnia. Wesley Dodds thankfully is there to help out, and they have to break out the Dream Stone in order to try and stop him, and it looks like somebody may be making the ultimate sacrifice. That takes up the first 2/3 of the book. Insomnia does seem to suffer a fate that is pretty harsh, and he may be gone forever, but probably not. Somebody will dust him off in 6 months just to annoy all of us. There's some resolution with Dodds, and Batman takes a big nap. Seriously, they did like 2 pages devoted to Batman taking a nap. And then we get the end cap with the little kid being like, superheroes are scary, blah blah. And then Amanda Waller shows up to be like, oh my god, everybody distrusts superheroes now because of nightmares. And we learn who ended up with the Nightmare Stone, and we get a new villain called Dr. Hate, which is super lazy. And Waller is apparently trying to destroy all superheroes because she's not the most overused character in DC history since Maxwell Lord. I really don't understand why they keep relying on this crutch of Amanda Waller. Just kill her off already. She's not a good character anymore. They've made her less interesting by constantly watering her down by doing the same stuff over and over again of trying to take out the Justice League and all the superheroes. It's really tiresome and overplayed. So I'm not impressed by that little lead into further storytelling. The main story was a little dragged out, especially with these end cap pieces with the little kid and her family. I thought that was just filler. There's a lot of large panels in here, and the first half of this issue could have been tacked on to issue 4 and made it an actual miniseries instead of forcing you to buy another issue that isn't part of the miniseries. So they're tricking you into having to spend an extra $6 that you really didn't need to spend. They could have put that part of this issue on that book and made it an extra $1. Instead, they did this to bump up sales, and it was really, really lazy. Also, the art looks pretty rushed in this one. The first half of the book looks fine, but once they get into the final fight, it's kind of a mess. The superheroes really don't do anything other than kill time for Deadman and Wesley Dodds to do something. And most of what was tied in from the micro series books, the little 2-parters they did, really was at best serviceable. It was just little appearances. None of those books really came into play with any of this. There was this big lead-in for the Batgun creature, the Super Reaver, and the Wonder Woman monster, and they were just henchmen, effectively, that were background filler for the fighting. That was it. They weren't characters in the book. They weren't big threats. They were just there to keep the main Justice League busy while Deadman and Wesley Dodds moved the story along. So I have to say, this was a huge miss for me. There's just too much pointless filler. A lot of this stuff could have been in another issue, and it would have made more sense. And instead, they want to put these little lead-ins in to other storylines, and I didn't care about those. I'm not buying those books. I don't care about Amanda Waller's plans because it has nothing to do with this story except peripherally, and it was really, really frustrating. The whole Dr. Hate thing was stupid, and apparently that's going to be some character we already know. I don't really care. I'm sure somebody somewhere cares, but it had nothing to do with the storyline, so I really didn't didn't see the point in it. So if you're going to pick this series up, I would say grab it out of the bargain bin. The majority of it is fine, but they're obviously marketing this for the trade paperback or to get you to buy a whole bunch of single issues. Most of the two-part stories that they did, where they suspended all the regular books to do these little two-part micro series, were just not worth the money. And the handful that were interesting still weren't worth $4 or $5. There were only a few that really stood out as being quality. And the miniseries itself was largely fine, but it was definitely padded in this issue and First Blood in order to get you to buy those 2 issues instead of just making it a 6-part miniseries. So it was to trick speculators into picking up an issue 1 and to manipulate regular customers into having to buy 2 other issues because you're not going to understand the 4-part miniseries without Night Terror's First Blood and Night Terror's Night's End. You don't get a complete story. So it's the usual kind of marketing trick that I've come to expect from the big 2, and it's really disappointing to see. Also, about halfway through the book, most of the art started to look really rushed and kind of messy and a little sloppy. So I was really disappointed by a lot of things with this, so I'm not going to recommend it unless you can get it cheap. That's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you'd like to help the channel out in other ways, links are in the description to various support methods. And as always, we hope to see you on the next one.